All right, it's the top of the hour, so we are going to go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our stress-free test prep webinar for New York educators. We are so excited to have you here with us today. My name is Alyssa DiVincenzo, and I will be your host this afternoon. I'm the Community and Social Media Specialist here at Edulastic. Thank you for taking the time out of your very busy schedules to be here with us as we prepare for the upcoming state testing season. Edulastic is a great tool to help you get your students ready for state testing. Edulastic features over 50 tech-enhanced question types, over 90,000 items in the Edulastic Certified Item Bank, over 60,000 assessments in the test library, standards tracking, mastery reports, and player skins that look almost identical to the look and feel of your state test. These are just a handful of the features available to you once you join Edulastic. Next. As we all know, both the New York State Testing Program exams and Regents measure student knowledge and learning standards mastery. Edulastic's library of released test items is a great resource to access practice questions for these standardized tests, especially since NYS is transitioning to computer-based testing this year. Next. To find New York-related items, log into Edulastic, go to the test library, and clear your filters and search NY Regents. If you'd like a live demo of how to do so, please let us know in the Q&A box and we will happily do so at the end. All right, the moment you've all been waiting for, I'm excited to turn our presentation over to our wonderful educators we have with us today. First up, we have Chris White. Chris is an earth science teacher. All right, Chris, I'm handing it off to you.
All right, thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here to share some of the ways I use Edulastic as an earth science teacher. I've been teaching earth science, Regents earth science, for about 14 years. So I've recently, in the last 5 years or so, really adopted Edulastic as a go-to for assessing students and using to really target the instruction that I have in and outside the classroom. So I'm going to take you through a couple ways. If we go to the next slide, you can see that little bit of an overview of how I use Edulastic. A little bit of a unique experience that I have, and I guess is keep that in mind as you go through. I teach at a school that has accelerated all eighth graders into earth science. And so all eighth graders that I teach across the school, as well as a couple other teachers in the district, teach earth science, Regents earth science, that culminates in a Regents exam at the end of the year to eighth graders. So Edulastic is definitely a great tool to kind of make my life a little bit easier, as you know, I teach students from many ability levels, all at eighth grade. So just taking a look at this slide, I'm going to take you through a couple different ways that I use Edulastic. The first one I'm going to screen share here in a second, and that's the content review with embedded checks. So I'll give you guys an example of how I kind of distribute some content and have students check their understanding through some videos and reading. And then I'm going to share how I use some real-time feedback and explanations, which is very helpful in and outside of the classroom. I do something that I call up to nows. It's like an ongoing cumulative practice. I'll give you an example of that. And then I use Edulastic in lots of different ways for quick and easy formative assessments. You know, just a couple questions here or there and understanding checks throughout the year, and especially towards the end of the year as we're getting ready for the final exam. And then I do really appreciate Edulastic's ability to provide a lot of different question styles, because particularly in the short response questions on the final exam that we give, there's definitely you know, more than just multiple choice. So there's sequencing and there's matching and drawing and other things. So I'll share all that with you. If you go to the next slide. So one of the things that I often do is as my repertoire builds and I get more questions and I get more assessments on Edulastic, I try to embed into them some explanations. So this is a great tool in the program, especially when you're prepping for their test at the end of the year. You got a lot going on. There's might be multiple tests students are taking. And so to try to get the explanations about each question and the answers to each question really helps students if they were to get them wrong. So here's an example of just an 8-question little quiz or assessment. And I give you an example of question 8 that just asks a little bit about stream velocity for earth science teachers. And if a student answered it incorrectly, you can enter into the program a solution. And so if a student answered silt and the correct answer is sand that you see on the screen there, they can go to an explanation, which is on the next slide. And on the left there's an explanation about how you get the right answer. So if they got it wrong, rather than just saying, oops, I got it wrong, I don't know how to do it, you can embed in an explanation. And there even is a picture of the graph, of one of the graphs in the earth science reference tables that we use on the test. And so I do a little annotation to that graph, show them how to use it, and put some arrows and get to the conclusion of sand versus the answer they might have had as silt. On the right-hand side is just another example of an explanation. You can put a little passage. If they get the answer wrong, they can see the solution. You can even embed videos into the explanation so you can show the process. Let's say if this particular one was about barrier island formation. So it kind of makes it more concrete and visual and helps students get ready to answer those more complex questions on the exams. You can go on to the next one, please. So one of the things that I do is called up to nows. Periodically through the year, maybe 4 or 5 times, I'll have a 15, 20 question homework or assessment, or maybe some classwork time where students answer cumulative questions from the start of the year up to whenever I give the assignment. So I put these in Edulastic for various reasons. One is that I can disseminate it very easily to all the students. They know exactly where to go and get it. There's connects to Google Classroom so they can see the assignment when it's due. And it gives them time to work on it over a couple days even. And it reinforces the key content that they've been learning all the way up to when I assign this particular assignment. So I'll give you an example on the next slide of one of the assessments I did this year, which was, I believe I called it Up to Weather. Yep. And there was 20 questions on it. And so this is just one class's feedback. And it allows me to target the information as I continue through the year and review. And Edulastic is a great program because it just gives me that feedback right there. I can see some trouble areas on the content that we've been learning since the beginning of the year. Question 1 or 2 dealt with deep space astronomy, for example. Question 6 was moon phases. Question 11, energy and climate. And question 17 was global wind patterns. So this is several units worth of information. I don't have to review it all with the students by the end of the year, but I can definitely reinforce those key concepts that seem to be a little bit lower for a particular class. And I mean, just to kind of get that information by looking at a handout would be reviewing 23 students' handouts and determining which was the trouble areas would just take forever. So this really helps me to target those areas. And then as a class, I can see the trouble areas. But if we go to the next slide, we can see how particular students fare on this example of an up to weather. And so you can give individualized feedback and really gauge the progress and preparation of individual students. So I might, for the blue book student there who's got 19 out of 20, I'm not going to bother them. They seem to know what's going on. They got the content down. That one question they got wrong, I'm sure we'll fill in at some point as we review to the end of the year. But the student on the left, green car, that's one student I'm going to really target. I don't have to talk to all the students that had 19 out of 20s or something close to that, but I'm really going to sit down and pull onto the side there, the green car student, and focus on what's going on with them. And really target their instruction, really focus on them as they move to the second half of the year. I think I gave this right about the halfway point where we are. On to the next slide, please. And so I use Edulastic all year long, but I definitely really start hitting it home towards the end of the year. I do some review, and then I give little review quizzes for the final exam that they're preparing for all year long. And so you can see the items here. It says total items of 6, so it's not a whole lot of information. They're quick and easy to build. And then I have students do some review, and then they come in and try to test their skills, and they do a little review quiz. And if there's any areas individually or the whole class, I can talk about. And I use it frequently for understanding checks as well. So it makes my life so much easier. I give instant feedback. The students know that they have to complete it. It tells me if they did or not and how long it took them to take the little assessments and quizzes. And it links right to Google Classroom. As you see on the right-hand side of this slide, there's a whole bunch of, it's just one column of actually a quiz that I had linked with Edulastic. And so it brings it in there so parents can also see pretty easily, as well as the students, where the children are, where the students are on their assessments and how they're getting ready for the final exam. So that's very useful. And I think the last one here last group of slides here. So the last thing that I really appreciate with getting students ready for the exams is that there's a variety of questions. So it's not just multiple choice. If you used Edulastic before, you can see there's multiple different ways that you can assess their skills and target those short response questions on the exams. In particular, science exams on mine, there's 35 short response questions. They can be anything from writing answers, sentences, to drawing different diagrams, to labeling, to grouping. There's lots of different ones. So this drag and drop one, you can take the words on the left and categorize them on the right for the different types of planets that students need to learn about. On the next slide, there's sequencing. They love to do that on my exam. They'll say, largest to smallest or first to last. And here's a sequencing of the life stages of a star like the sun. So students can do that, and you can absolutely easily assess it and see if they, where they got the sequencing wrong. I think I have one or two more. Labeling a diagram, this is the water cycle that they often assess. They might fill in some spots, but then students have to fill in the remaining ones. So it's a little interactive, labeling the diagram, more holistic experience and assessment process. I think that might be the last one, maybe one more. So just the key points that I just like to stress. And so I use Edulastic as a very versatile program, one of my favorites. Checks for understandings, quizzes, tests, definitely exam prep. And I can also teach some initial instruction through it, not just getting ready for the final exam or reviewing. Definitely is easy to monitor student progress and completion of work. It just pops right up on the screen and you can see exactly where they are and what they've done. Real-time feedback, like I explained before, is a great tool. And I've been using this program for a long time, so it might look like that it's a lot of work to build these things. And it's really pretty quick and easy, and over time you just keep on adding to it. So you just start small and then get bigger. And a couple of years, you got a really good set of questions and assessments. And I do love all those types of question styles, so I do appreciate those. So that just takes me through how I use Edulastic in lots of different ways in preparation for exam. So thanks very much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Chris. That was an awesome presentation. And again, my apologies for the technical difficulties. If we have time at the end to address that one slide that we didn't get to see, we will definitely do so. All right, next up, we have Tyler Brown. Tyler is a 6th grade ELA teacher. Tyler, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So Chris did an awesome job explaining a lot of the different types of questions and tools that we can use in Edulastic. So I tried to stay away from some of that stuff just with my presentation, just so you guys weren't getting the same thing twice. Like Alyssa said, I'm Tyler Brown. I'm a 6th grade teacher. This is my 8th year in 6th grade. I taught my first year in 2nd grade. So I made the jump out of the lower primaries into the upper primary middle school, if you will. And I try to keep some of that primary stuff in my classroom as well. So if you just go to the next slide for me, please. So one of the biggest things for me with Edulastic, especially for prepping for the New York State exams, is getting students comfortable with using a digital assessment to begin with. I mean, we have digital assessments now, we know they're going to be around. So how can we develop a sense of comfort with them so that we can, have these kids go into these tests and worry less about what they're having to use and more about showing their understanding and their knowledge. So my key points here: creating a sense of comfort, understanding the growth through mastering, and how does test prep feel like test prep, but also not feel like test prep. And that's really what it comes down to. And my little Bitmoji guy there talking about no pressure is really kind of my goal with that. So if you just go to the next slide, please. So I'll just leave this here. I won't worry about the screen sharing because we can physically see what I was going to kind of show. One of the best things for me with Edulastic is having that Questar skin and students getting comfortable with what they might actually see when they take the Questar exam. So instead of a situation occurring, where you're showing them one type of digital assessment and then they're taking a different one, and that crossover is difficult to really understand how it works, Edulastic builds the opportunity to use this skin that looks just like Questar, and it lets the kids build that sense of comfort by using it. So they get to use the tools, they get to see how it works. And like I said earlier, we're less about the how and more about the content. Go to the next slide for me, please. So in our school, and I'm sure probably schools across New York State, you have to actually do a practice Questar CBT during the school day. It's like a test for the the network to make sure it works, make sure everybody can connect, make sure all the Chromebooks or laptops work, iPads, whatever it is you're using. So what I did is I said to my kids, I go, guys, after we did the CBT, because we'd already been using Edulastic, how did Edulastic compare to the CBT? And I took some of these quotes they gave me. Some were like, I'm not gonna read through all of them because I don't know about you guys. I'm not a fan of having somebody read a presentation to me. I think you guys are more than capable of doing that. But as you can see here, the comfort level that they had, they were almost bored doing the CBT practice because it was so similar to them. They were talking to classmates on other teams who aren't using Edulastic, and like, we've already done this all year long. It was a cakewalk for us. We didn't have to worry about the how, what was working, what wasn't working. If they ran into some sort of troubleshooting issue, it was fine for them because that happens on the computer all the time. So they were able to use their background of having used a program already to apply that to CBT, which is just going to help them at the end of March when they go to take the actual assessment. So if we go to the next slide, please. So one way I build comfort through these is also developing a sense of mastering what they know. So now that we've developed some sort of sense of comfort with the program, now it's applying our understanding of content. And something I really like about Edulastic is that not only can you allow multiple attempts, but you can also build in a check answer. So a student can take an assessment, get to a question they might be stuck on, and actually say, hey, is the answer that I have right now correct? No. Okay, that sets them back to now reevaluate where their mindset was when they're answering the question and how can I apply what I got wrong to then find the correct solution. And just as Chris was saying with feedback, feedback is the most important thing. And as a teacher, when you have a pile of papers that's 48 inches high and you're trying to work through it, how do you get that feedback back in a timely manner? So you've got your release scores on, and you've got different options. So you can release scores and student responses. And I find that to be really helpful because a student can see what they got wrong. Let's take the assessment a second time without just being given the correct answers. So now, again, they're going back and reevaluating their learning, reevaluating what is it that I got wrong? Why did I get it wrong? And how can I improve? And I've seen a lot of intrinsic motivation occur from this, from students having that power over their own learning. So rather than you take it once, you get this grade and that's it, that is what it is, this growth through mastering develops this sense of I want to get better. And I've had students finish an assessment and go, Mr. Brown, I got this score, but when I take it the next time, I'm really going to slow down on those questions that I got wrong so that I can improve my score for the next time. And I'm pretty sure, I think the next slide is an example of what that looks like. So this was just a review assessment I gave before a break because I wanted to see kind of where the knowledge level changed. And I wanted to use something that was a bit more accurate than your pretty version of what mastering could look like. So you could see like the violet car here got a 68 the first time, only improved to a 76 the second time. I could put one on here that it's a 99 and everything's wonderful and dandy, but that's not what we see every day in the classroom. So I didn't want to give that false sense of my classroom being the world's greatest thing. You've got kids here 64 to 100. So the blue car kid really sat back and said, you know what? I went too fast. I didn't pay attention. I need to really sit back and think about it. And then you've got, I think there's a couple on the orange ball, the magenta magnet, the red eraser. You'll see this happen too, where a student will get the same grade because they either think that they know or they're not paying as much attention or they just want to kind of run through it quick. So this really gives me not only the data of how did they grow, but where was their mindset while they were retaking the assessment. So I paired this with, like I said in the beginning, building that comfort level of how to use the assessments. And they go into computer-based testing ready to go because we've been doing test prep, quote unquote, all year long. It's not test prep because it's just what they know. If we go to the next slide. So this is test prep without being test prep. I do scavenger hunts in my room all the time and I try to find weird ways to incorporate things. So using Edulastic for more than just grades and playing really helps, I think, improve their understanding and use of it. They don't see Edulastic and immediately go, oh, this is a test, or oh, this is for a grade. Sometimes they just want to play with the software, and giving them that opportunity to do that, again, is going to develop their comfort level. And then not everything has to be for a grade. Sometimes it's just for an assessment or to check their growth to see kind of where they were at. So to answer your question, how long did I take between, I'm guessing you mean as far as when I gave it to them and they were allowed to retake the test. I just want to make sure I understand your question correctly. So that's on them. Once they've taken it once and the opportunity to take it twice is there, they could turn right back around and take it. They could sit back and take it the next day. I gave it to them as a homework assignment. What I tend to do is give them a full week for the assignment. So they have from Monday to Friday, and they kind of build their own time management to sit back and reflect. Do I need more time to sit back? Do I kind of have an idea of what I got wrong? Do I want to dive back into it? And Edulastic's so great that you can save and exit and then get back into it later, that they might go through a couple of questions right after taking it and then pick it back up later. So I hope that that answers that question. So it's really on them. It puts some ownership of their learning on them, which I like. And again, builds that intrinsic motivation to get better. I think I might have one more slide. Nope, that's it for me. So just test prep without being test prep. Make it fun for them. Give them the opportunity to play with it, get comfortable with what's going on, and learn from their mistakes. And they're going to go in with a lot of confidence when they need to take the real test. So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Tyler. That was an awesome presentation. All right. If you'd like more information on the New York Edulastic practice test we have available, I'm going to send a link right now in the chat that you can go ahead and check out after today's presentation. Now I'm going to give you that live demo of how to find those assessments in Edulastic, so that way you know exactly where to go and what to type. Okay, so once you are logged in, you'll see your dashboard. You're going to go ahead and go to the test library. You might need to clear your filters first, and then you could go ahead and type. I'm going to type NY Regents here. And I'm also going to filter by subject. So let's say I'm looking for a science, and you can filter by grade. Let's see, grade level 9. So there we go. You can filter based on grade, subject, and you can use the search bar just to look for this specific test. But in general, these are great ways to filter down what you're trying to find. As we said before, there are many, many tests in the Edulastic library. So once you find one that you like, you can go ahead and click on it, give it a preview. If you like what you see, you can go ahead. Oops, sorry, I have to move my Zoom window here. There we go. Okay, you can exit once you see that you are ready to assign, or you can clone. Assigning means it'll be as is. If you want to adjust some of the questions, but you like the bones of it, you can clone the test and edit the questions from there. All right, now we're going to open it up for our Q&A and discussion with our presenters. So you could go ahead and drop your questions in the Q&A box. That way we can see them and make sure we address them before the end of the presentation. I'm going to kick us off with some questions for our presenters. So let's start. Whoever wants to pick up first, Tyler and Chris. How often do you use pre-made assessments versus creating your own assessments?
So I can field that one, I guess, first. I've been using Edulastic for a while, so I kind of built a chunk of questions that I can draw from. But as you guys just showed as an example, you can definitely go in and get some pre-made assessments right from the Regents exam. So I've used some of those questions out of those to kind of fill in some of my tests. I haven't used a complete one yet, but if they're already written in there, I can just clone them, take them, and then use them in whatever assessments I've already built. So it's kind of a mixture of what you have on there already provided, and then some that I have created as well.
I would say the same as what Chris said, kind of a mixture of the two. I haven't taken anything fully and used just that. I tend to do a little bit of editing. Most of the stuff I have built has been kind of from scratch, if you will. obviously building it, we're putting in the passage and the questions that go with it, from things that maybe I've used in the past when I was using Google Forms and things like that, or from something new that I've read. And I have used like a mixture of things that have been pre-made as well. What's great about questions when you make them is you're also making your own bank of questions. I think that sometimes gets lost. So you're able to make your own bank of questions. So if you go to make a review assessment, you can actually pull those questions and passages from things that you've already used in the past to help rebuild new assessments from stuff you've already done. So you don't have to double up on the work.
Great, thank you both. Okay, I do see some questions coming in both our Q&A box and the chat. All right, Ileana, it looks like you have one that you volunteered to answer. You would like to take it away?
Okay, so we have a question. So one of them, I'm actually going to see if I can redirect this one. Julie asked, can you show the Questar skin that Tyler mentioned? Tyler, is any chance that you could show that, or that you'd be willing to show that?
Yeah, I have an assessment I can pull up. If you just give me one quick sec, I'll pull that assessment up I was going to show.
Okay.
I didn't pull it up because I didn't want to have the mute situation happen by accident again. So I figured just avoid that for right now, but let's see if I can find that real quick.
While you find that, we can address this other question. So Jessica is asking, are there other questions in the banks besides old Regents exam questions? And I'll let, maybe Chris can answer that while Tyler's pulling up the answer to the other question.
So are there other questions besides the banks of old exams? So yeah, you can search anybody that has made it public. So any tests, any quizzes or assessments, or any work really that anybody that's using Edulastic makes public. There's thousands and thousands of questions. You can just search key terms, keywords, grade level searches, and content searches. As long as the people who make it have tagged it properly, it should show up, and you should be able to use their questions if they made them public. So I often share my assessments, my quizzes, and anything else I make on there with my teachers in my school. And they can just grab my questions, adjust them as they needed. So it's a mixture, I guess you could say, again, of old Regents exam questions and ones that have been made by various people using the program, to your colleagues in the school. So it's all of the above in that case. So it's not just old exams, but it depends upon what you're looking for, I think.
Awesome, thanks. And I'll just, I'll pull this up on the screen since I'm already sharing to help illustrate what Chris was just sharing. But when you're in that test library, you can filter for the different collections. He had mentioned the public library, so I have that in here. There's also the Edulastic certified library. Another, you can have a library within your school. And as you can see in this assessment assignment bank, there's over 60,000 pre-made assessments that you can pull from. And then you can filter by grade, subject, standards. This is also similar to what Alyssa was showing earlier, but she was specifically showing you how to get to Regents. So in addition to the Regents assessments and New York State released open access items, which are available publicly to anyone through your Edulastic account, you can also go over to the item bank and search this way as well. So you can kind of preview the different questions here. Again, you have all these sorting options, and you can preview them and add them to your test if you think it's going to work for you. All right. And then Tyler, if you're ready, we can.
Yep, I'll give that a go.
Okay.
Let's see here. All right, desktop. One second. Just have to allow one thing. I won't be able to share. It's going to kick me out of the meeting if I try to share because I have to change a setting in my profile, unfortunately.
Oh, okay, that's too bad. Why don't Jessica asked us? Jessica, why don't you send us an email and we'll send you a picture of what that looks like. Maybe Alyssa can share her email address with you in the chat. Oh yeah, she said it right there. Great.
Yes, I just sent my email. I'm also seeing questions about accessing this video later. We will be posting this video on YouTube. It's currently streaming on Facebook, so you will be able to access it there. And we will be sending a link to view this recording some point tomorrow. You'll probably receive that.
So I will say, to address what Julie was asking, it is almost identical to Questar. I mean, it's about as close as you can get to Questar without being Questar. The tools are very similar. The way that the screen moves around, the way the coloring is the same, the boxes are the same. The kids honestly couldn't really even tell a difference between the two when they were doing the CBT practice that was actually on Questar compared to Edulastic. So I think that really helped. I know, unfortunately, we can't show you it live how I'm trying to explain it, but it is literally almost a direct copy, which is really great and really helpful. So I know that doesn't really fully answer your question, but it definitely does make a massive difference going from just the regular green modeled way to what it would look like for them to actually take it.
Is this a sample of what it looks like? I just found this from when we released it, just as a screenshot.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
That's a little image of it right there.
So you can see it's got all those same tools, just like ours would have. The buttons are the same. It's got the online thing up in the left-hand corner, because that's, I know, something that a lot of students had issues with in the past. So if you look at the top right left-hand corner there where it says online, that was something we really had to tell our kids the first couple of years we were doing this, because that would kick off sometimes because it was the first year of Questar rolling it out. So we had to make sure that we told them, like, if it says offline, you need to inform us, let us know so that we can make sure that everything gets saved. So all of those little tiny quirks that you might be manipulating or working with or troubleshooting with are all there for them to practice and visually see.
Awesome. Thanks, team, for pulling that together. I do see one more question in the chat for both Chris and Tyler, if you want to both answer one at a time. Michelle asks, how much class time, if any, would you spend with these practice tests with the state exams coming up?
I guess I can go again first there. Sure. The amount of class time. So I will definitely, throughout the year, be assigning most of the review or exam prep for homework, just because I'm continuing to teach new content. But as the year, comes close to ending, I will definitely do some more quizzes in school. So I'll send kids home with some review activities, some homework, and they'll have a deadline when they're going to have a quiz in class. And that will be kind of like a little mini practice test for that particular subject. So a lot of the exam prep for my class is happening outside of school. And then I will definitely assess their understanding when they come back in, kind of like a testing format, just to make sure they are getting what they're supposed to be doing before we get to the test. Occasionally, depending upon timing and the sequence of instruction, I would have half a class or maybe even a whole class sparingly having students do some sort of practice exam, so they get that feeling of being in the testing environment. They can't use they can't use Google to get any answers, and they can't ask their friends, call them or text them. So it's really dependent upon what you want to get at, what kind of environment and kind of feeling you want to get for the students before you get to the test. So most outside of class, but sometimes it's appropriate to do it inside so they get that feeling of being in the test.
And kind of like what I was saying in my presentation, for me, I try to sprinkle these things in throughout the year so it doesn't feel like test prep. I found in the past, when I first moved to sixth grade, there was a big push for the test prep. And by the time we got to the test, they were burned out. So I really try to balance it out. And like Chris said, a lot of it happens for me outside of class with the occasional use in class. And if I do it in class, it's usually something I use just as a quick formative assessment. I won't spend a lot of time on it, just to continue to build that comfort of how does the software use, how does it work, and how can I, apply my understanding of the content to it. So I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time. And the great thing is logging in, if your school uses whatever program your school uses for, its learning management system. If it's Google, log in with Google, you do the assessment and you're out, and you could be in and out in 5 to 10 minutes tops, just because it's so smooth.
Great. Thank you, Chris and Tyler. I did see one other question pop through the Q&A box that I want to make sure we hit, asking what the pricing is on all of this. Great news is that Edulastic is free for teachers, so you can create a free teacher account. Many teachers love this free account and they find it robust enough to use in their classroom full-time. We do have premium options available for anyone that's looking to upgrade their features, such as using the Desmos calculator and so on. I'm going to go ahead and drop some links for you to check out, and you can see compare plans and pricing, as well as checking out what Teacher Premium exactly is and what additional features it offers. Tyler and Chris, what are your favorite Edulastic Premium features?
Premium for me, definitely being able to show the class results. There's a little presentation button where you can click the results and it hides their names. It puts up the blue car or the favorite gray eraser, and students, and it mixes up, so it doesn't go alphabetical. It mixes up the results. You could see individual student results if you wanted to show that, but it hides their names and it mixes them up so it doesn't go alphabetical. And then, you can show which questions take longer for students to respond to, which ones are more difficult. And then you can highlight those and target those with whole class instruction. The other one that I've been using pretty frequently while I'm having students quiz is that you can lock them to the screen. It doesn't technically lock them to the screen, but it warns them if they try to navigate off. And you can set different settings. If they're navigating off for 10 seconds or 20 seconds, you can stop them from navigating, warning them once, and then it freezes their quiz the second time and it notifies the teacher on the dashboard. So it definitely kind of, supports a little quizzing environment, especially when students are pretty savvy with navigating on their own computers. It prevents them from doing that. So I trust the program in that way to support getting realistic results on quizzes and assessments. Those are my two favorite at this point that I use quite heavily in class.
I would say for me, it's going to be the freedom with the redirects. There's a couple more options when you get into the premium mode that you don't have in the regular mode. And I would say also for me, I teach 2 consultant classes with students who have IEPs. So I have quite a few students who need things read to them. And having that text-to-speech option, which is so easy to set up, is really helpful, and it helps build independence for those students. So by them having that available to them, not only is it, filling a need in their IEP, it's also helping them understand that I don't always need to have somebody right next to me doing this for me. There's some way that I can use this on my own to take charge of my own learning. And I've seen that actually provide a lot of growth, to the point where some kids are like, I don't feel like I need to use it anymore because I'm making strides in my reading abilities to be able to answer these questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. If you have any other questions, you can go ahead and email me at alyssa@edulastic.com. I'll make sure I drop it in the chat as well. All right, there it is. Otherwise, that just about does it for our presentation today. Chris and Tyler, thank you so much for volunteering to present to fellow New York educators. You shared some awesome tips and tricks to bring back to the classroom and get ready for this testing season. And thank you to all of our attendees for joining us today. We wish you all the best of luck during this 2022 season. When you exit this webinar, you will be directed to a short survey to give us feedback on this event. We appreciate it so much if you take a few minutes to fill it out to help us grow our future events and refine it for you. Thank you again to our presenters and our attendees. Have a wonderful rest of your day.